The hidden language. Everyone speaks, but nobody teaches you. Here's something that might blow your mind. Right now, as you're reading this, you're surrounded by people who are literally screaming their deepest thoughts and feelings at you. And you're probably missing 90% of it. I'm not talking about words. Words, they're actually the least reliable part of human communication. What I'm talking about is the secret language that your brain is hardwired to understand, but that nobody ever taught you to decode consciously. It's the language of the body, the face, the voice, and the energy that people carry into every single room they enter. Imagine walking into a coffee shop and instantly knowing which stranger would be open to a friendly conversation and which one desperately needs to be left alone. Picture yourself in a business meeting, reading the room so accurately that you know exactly when to speak up and when to hold back. Think about being able to sense when someone you love is struggling, even when they smile and say, "I'm fine." This isn't science fiction, and it's not some psychic ability reserved for a chosen few. This is practical psychology, rooted in millions of years of human evolution, and you're about to learn how to tap into it. The symphony you've been ignoring. Let me paint you a picture. You're at a dinner party. Across the table sits someone you've just met. Let's call her Maria. She's telling a funny story about her recent vacation, and everyone's laughing, but something feels off. You can't quite put your finger on it, but your gut is telling you that Maria isn't as happy as she's pretending to be. That gut feeling? That's your ancient brain picking up on dozens of microscopic signals that your conscious mind hasn't learned to process yet. Maybe it's the way Maria's shoulders are slightly hunched forward, creating a protective barrier. Perhaps it's the millisecond flash of sadness that crossed her face before she forced that bright smile. It could be the slight tremor in her voice when she mentioned traveling alone, or the way she's gripping her wine glass just a little too tightly. Your brain caught all of it, but because nobody taught you the grammar of this hidden language, you only got a vague feeling instead of clear understanding. Here's the beautiful truth. Every human being is born with sophisticated mental equipment designed to read other people. We had to be. Our ancestors who couldn't tell the difference between a genuine smile and a threatening grimace. They didn't survive long enough to pass on their genes. The ones who could read micro-expressions, detect deception, and sense danger? They're the reason you're here today. But here's the problem. In our modern world of text messages and carefully curated social media posts, we've let these ancient skills atrophy like unused muscles. We've become so focused on words that we've forgotten how to listen to the symphony of nonverbal communication happening all around us. Why this matters more than you think. Some of you might be thinking, okay, this sounds cool, but is it really that important? I mean, I'm doing fine without it, right? Let me answer that with a question. How many times have you trusted someone you shouldn't have? Missed an opportunity because you didn't realize someone was interested? Had a conversation blow up because you couldn't sense the other person's emotional state? Felt blindsided when a relationship suddenly ended, even though there were no signs? Walked away from an interaction feeling like something was off, but you couldn't explain what? Here's the thing. The signs were there. They're always there. You just didn't have the framework to interpret them. Learning to read people isn't about becoming manipulative or turning into some cold, calculating observer. It's about developing genuine empathy through understanding. It's about becoming the kind of person who can sense when their partner needs space versus when they need closeness. It's about being the friend who shows up with coffee exactly when someone needs it, without them having to ask. It's about navigating your professional life with the kind of emotional intelligence that makes you irreplaceable. The 3-channel system. Nobody told you about human communication flows through 3 primary channels simultaneously, and most people only pay attention to one of them. Think of it like a 3-part harmony. When you only listen to one voice, you're missing the complete song. Channel 1. The face. This is your emotional broadcasting system. Your face has 43 muscles, and they can create over 10,000 distinct expressions. But here's what's wild. There are 7 core emotional expressions that every human being on the planet makes, regardless of culture, upbringing, or geography. These expressions are universal, involuntary, and nearly impossible to fake convincingly. Even more fascinating, they often flash across someone's face in less than 1/5 of a second, so quick you'll miss them unless you know what to look for. Channel 2. The body. While your face broadcasts emotions, your body reveals attitudes and intentions. The way someone stands, the direction their feet point, how much space they take up, whether they lean toward you or away. All of this is creating a constantly updating map of their internal psychological state. And here's the kicker. Because most people don't consciously control their body language, it's often more honest than anything they say. Channel 3. The voice. I'm not talking about what people say, but how they say it. The melody of communication. When someone's stressed, their voice literally changes pitch. Fear makes people talk faster. Sadness slows everything down. Deception creates specific patterns in speech rhythm. Your voice is like a musical instrument that's constantly being played by your nervous system. And once you learn to hear it, you'll wonder how you ever missed these signals. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. These 3 channels don't work in isolation. They work together, creating what behavioral psychologists call clusters. A single signal might not mean much. Crossed arms could just mean someone's cold. But crossed arms, plus a tight jaw, plus clipped vocal tone, plus backward-leaning posture, now you've got a cluster that's telling you something very specific. The baseline principle, your secret weapon. Here's a concept that's going to change everything for you. Baseline behavior. Every person has their own normal. Some people are naturally animated, talking with their hands and expressing emotions freely. Others are more reserved, keeping their cards close to their chest. Neither is better or worse. They're just different baselines. The magic happens when you learn to spot deviations from someone's baseline. Let me give you an example. You have a colleague named James. James is typically confident. He speaks at a moderate pace, maintains steady eye contact, and uses purposeful hand gestures when he talks. That's James's baseline. But today, in a meeting, you notice something different. James is speaking unusually fast. His eyes keep darting to the door. His hands are clasped tightly in his lap instead of moving naturally, he keeps touching his neck. James's words are saying, "I'm totally on board with this project." But every single one of his behaviors is screaming, "I'm uncomfortable and I want to leave." Which signal should you trust? The words or the behavior? If you guessed behavior, you're starting to get it. The baseline principle means you can't just memorize a list of what this gesture means. Context matters. Individual differences matter. And that's actually good news, because it means you're not looking for universal formulas. You're developing real understanding of the unique human beings in front of you. The evolution story, why you're already better at this than you think. Let's go back about 200,000 years. Your ancestors are living in small groups on the African savanna. There's no written language, no smartphones, no carefully crafted Instagram captions. Communication is immediate, visceral, and literally life or death. Can you tell if that approaching stranger is friendly or hostile? Your survival depends on reading their body language correctly. Is that person in your tribe being honest about where they found food, or are they hiding something? Your ability to detect deception determines whether you eat or go hungry. Is that potential mate actually interested in you, or are they just being polite? Your genetic legacy hangs in the balance. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans who were better at reading social signals had better outcomes. They formed stronger alliances. They avoided more threats. They attracted better mates. They raised more successful children, and those skills got encoded into your DNA. This means you're not starting from zero. You already have incredibly sophisticated neural circuitry designed specifically for processing social information. Right now, your brain is automatically tracking facial expressions, body positioning, vocal inflections, and hundreds of other subtle cues. It's analyzing patterns, comparing them to memories, and generating those gut feelings you sometimes get about people. The problem is that most of this processing happens unconsciously. It's like having a supercomputer running in the background, but you only see the vaguest hints of its output. What we're going to do together is bring that unconscious processing into your conscious awareness. We're going to give you the manual for that supercomputer you've been carrying around your whole life. The emotional leak principle. Here's a fundamental truth about human psychology that changes everything once you understand it. Emotions create involuntary physical responses. When you feel fear, your amygdala triggers a cascade of physiological changes. Your heart rate spikes, your breathing becomes shallow, your muscles tense, your pupils dilate, blood drains from your face, and specific patterns of muscles in your face contract in ways that are virtually impossible to control consciously. This happens whether you want it to or not. It's automatic, involuntary, which means that no matter how hard someone tries to hide what they're feeling, their body will leak the truth. Think about it like this. Emotions are like water, and your body is like a leaky bucket. You can try to keep the water contained, but it's going to seep out through the cracks. A person might say, "I'm not angry," while their jaw is clenched so tight it could crack diamonds. Someone might insist, "I'm confident about this," while their voice is 2 octaves higher than normal and their hands are trembling. This is why learning to read people works. You're not trying to develop psychic powers or read minds. You're simply learning to notice the involuntary physical manifestations of internal emotional states. You're learning to see the water seeping through the cracks. The context revolution. Now, before you rush out and start analyzing everyone you meet, there's one more crucial principle you need to understand. Context is everything. The same behavior can mean completely different things in different situations. Let me show you what I mean. Imagine someone with their arms crossed. What does that mean? In a heated argument? Probably defensiveness. In a freezing cold room? They're literally just cold. While listening to a lengthy presentation? Might be their comfortable listening position. During a vulnerable conversation? Could be self-protection. In a culture where crossed arms show respect? Totally normal and appropriate. See the problem with those simplistic body language means this guides? They ignore context. They turn rich, nuanced human behavior into crude stereotypes. Real behavioral reading is more sophisticated. It considers the physical environment, temperature, noise, crowding, the social situation, formal versus casual, public versus private, the cultural background, what's normal in their culture, the relationship dynamic, are they comfortable with you? The individual's baseline, is this normal for them? The emotional context, what's the overall vibe? This might sound complicated, but actually, your brain already does most of this automatically. We're just going to make the process conscious and systematic. What you're about to discover. Over the next several thousand words, we're going to dive deep into the practical skills of reading people. You're going to learn how to spot the 7 universal emotions that flash across every human face, and why even professional liars can't hide them completely. The specific muscle movements that reveal anger, fear, disgust, happiness, sadness, surprise, and contempt, and what each one tells you about what's really going on inside someone's mind. The body language clusters that reveal confidence versus insecurity, openness versus defensiveness, attraction versus disinterest, and truth versus deception. You'll learn what to look for and, just as importantly, what not to jump to conclusions about. The vocal patterns that leak stress, confidence, deception, and genuine emotion. You'll discover how to hear what someone's nervous system is doing just by listening to how they speak. The art of establishing baselines and spotting meaningful deviations. This is where you move from amateur observations to professional-level insight. How context, culture, and environment shape behavior, and how to avoid the devastating mistakes that come from ignoring these factors. The digital age adaptations you need to know for reading people through text messages, emails, video calls, and social media. Yes, these skills work online too. Real-world applications for job interviews, sales, dating, parenting, conflict resolution, and every other area of life where understanding people matters. But here's what matters most. By the time you finish this journey, you won't just have a collection of facts about body language and facial expressions. You'll have developed a new way of seeing people. You'll walk into rooms differently. You'll listen differently. You'll notice things that used to be invisible to you. And here's my promise to you. I'm going to teach you these skills with the same warmth and enthusiasm I'd use if we were sitting across from each other at a coffee shop, and you just asked me about the most fascinating topic I know. No academic jargon, unless we really need it. No cold clinical analysis. Just practical, applicable knowledge delivered in a way that makes sense. The ethical foundation. Before we go any further, we need to talk about something important. How you use these skills matters. Think of behavioral reading like learning to pick locks. Lock picking is a skill that can be used to help people who've locked themselves out of their homes, or it can be used to break into houses and steal. The skill itself is neutral. The ethics come from how you apply it. The same is true here. These skills can be used to build deeper, more authentic relationships, provide better support to people you care about, communicate more effectively in every area of life, protect yourself from manipulation and deception, become more emotionally intelligent and empathetic. Or they can be used to manipulate people when they're vulnerable, exploit others' insecurities for personal gain, violate people's privacy and autonomy, create distance and suspicion in relationships. I'm teaching you these skills with the assumption that you want to use them for good, that you want to become someone who understands people more deeply, so you can connect more authentically, communicate more effectively, and contribute more positively to the world. Throughout this journey, we're going to keep coming back to ethical applications, because the goal isn't to turn you into a master manipulator. The world has enough of those already. The goal is to help you become the kind of person who sees others clearly, understands them deeply, and uses that understanding to make every interaction a little bit better. Your invitation to see differently. So here we are, at the beginning of something that could genuinely transform how you experience human relationships. You're about to learn to see a layer of reality that's been invisible to you your whole life. It's always been there. You've just been looking past it. And the beautiful thing, you don't need any special talent. You don't need to be naturally intuitive or psychologically gifted. You just need curiosity, patience, and a willingness to practice. Every person you meet from this point forward becomes a teacher. Every conversation becomes an opportunity to sharpen your skills. Every interaction becomes richer, more nuanced, more interesting. Are you ready? Because the journey we're about to take together is going to change not just how you see other people, but how you see yourself. It's going to make you more aware of your own signals, more conscious of what you're broadcasting to the world. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Architecture of Human Connection. You know that moment when you meet someone for the first time and within seconds you just know? Maybe you know you're going to be friends, or you know to keep your guard up, or you know there's chemistry, or you know something's off. We usually write these moments off as intuition or gut feeling, and then we move on. But what if I told you that your gut is actually processing hundreds of data points that your conscious mind hasn't learned to see yet? Let me introduce you to what I call the architecture of human connection, the fundamental psychological principles that govern every single human interaction you'll ever have. Principle number 1, we're tribal creatures in a modern world. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine you're living 50,000 years ago. Your entire world consists of maybe 150 people. You know every single one of them intimately, their quirks, their reliable patterns, their dangerous moments. Your survival depends on reading these people accurately. Who can you trust when you're hunting dangerous game? Who's going to share food when times are tough? Who's a potential mate and who's competition? Who's reliable and who might betray the group? You develop incredibly sophisticated social sensors because your life literally depends on them. The people who couldn't read social signals, they made bad alliances. They trusted the wrong people. They missed threats. They didn't survive long enough to become your ancestors. Fast forward to today. You're reading this on a device your great-great-grandparents couldn't have imagined. You interact with hundreds or thousands of people, mostly through text and carefully filtered images. You can hide behind screens, edit your messages, and curate your personality. But here's the thing. Your brain is still running software designed for that tribal world. When you're face-to-face with someone, your ancient neural circuitry kicks in, scanning for all those survival-critical signals. Friend or foe? Trustworthy or dangerous? Happy to see me or wishing I'd leave? This is why video calls feel exhausting in a different way than in-person meetings. Your brain is trying to run its social scanning software, but half the normal data is missing. It's like trying to hear a symphony when half the instruments aren't playing. Understanding this tribal heritage is key because it explains why behavioral reading works. You're not learning something new. You're becoming consciously aware of something your brain has been doing automatically your entire life. Principle number 2, your body doesn't lie, even when your mouth does. Here's a fun experiment. Try to genuinely smile while thinking about something that makes you angry. Really try it. Think about your worst day at work, or that person who cut you off in traffic, or that argument you had last week. Now smile. What happened? If you're like most people, you might have gotten your mouth into smile position, but something was off, right? Maybe your eyes didn't crinkle. Maybe the smile didn't reach your cheeks. Maybe it felt forced and unnatural. That's because genuine emotions create specific, involuntary physical responses that your conscious mind can't fully control. Your nervous system is like an honest messenger that reports directly from your emotional center, bypassing your ability to censor or edit. When you're genuinely happy, specific muscles around your eyes, called the orbicularis oculi, but don't worry, we're not going to get too technical, contract involuntarily. You literally cannot make this happen on command. Your smile reaches your eyes because the neural pathway for genuine happiness activates those muscles automatically. This is happening with every emotion you experience. Fear makes your eyes widen and your eyebrows raise in a specific pattern. Anger creates tension in your jaw and a narrowing of your eyes. Disgust raises your upper lip. Sadness pulls the inner corners of your eyebrows up and together. And here's the beautiful part. These patterns are the same whether you're in New York or New Delhi, whether you're 8 years old or 80, whether you're a CEO or a street vendor. They're universal, hardwired, and deeply honest. This is why reading people works even when people are trying to hide their feelings. Their conscious mind might be working overtime to maintain a poker face, but their nervous system is leaking the truth through micro-expressions, muscle tension, breathing patterns, and dozens of other involuntary signals. Principle number 3. The baseline is your North Star. Imagine you're a detective trying to solve a case, and your only clue is that something changed. That's not very helpful, right? Changed from what? This is why the concept of baseline behavior is so crucial. Everyone has their normal, their default way of being. When they're relaxed and comfortable, and deviations from that normal are what carry meaning. Let me give you a real-world example. I have a friend. Let's call him Marcus. Marcus is naturally energetic. When he talks, his hands move constantly. He speaks quickly, makes lots of eye contact, and his facial expressions are animated. That's Marcus's baseline. One day, we're having coffee, and I notice something different. Marcus is sitting unusually still. His hands are clasped in his lap. He's speaking more slowly than usual, and he keeps looking down at the table instead of at me. His facial expression is subdued. Now, if I didn't know Marcus's baseline, I might think he's calm and thoughtful. But because I know his normal, I can see that he's significantly below his baseline. Something's wrong. So I ask, "Hey, you seem quieter than usual. You okay?" And boom. That's when Marcus tells me he just got some worrying news about his father's health. He was trying to keep it together, trying not to burden me, but his body was broadcasting his emotional state loud and clear. I just had to know how to read it. This principle applies to everyone you meet. You can't just memorize a universal dictionary of this gesture means that emotion. You need to learn each person's individual language, and that means spending time establishing their baseline before you can accurately interpret their deviations. The good news: your brain is actually pretty quick at this if you pay attention. Even in a 15-minute conversation, you can get a decent sense of someone's baseline patterns. Principle number 4. Clusters trump single signals. Here's where a lot of amateur people readers go wrong. They spot one signal and jump to conclusions. He touched his nose. He must be lying. She crossed her arms. She must be defensive. He's avoiding eye contact. He must be hiding something. Not so fast. He might have an itchy nose. She might be cold. He might be from a culture where direct eye contact is considered disrespectful. Professional behavioral reading isn't about spotting individual signals. It's about recognizing clusters of signals that all point in the same direction. Let me paint you a picture. You're in a meeting with a potential business partner. As you discuss the deal, you notice she's leaning slightly backward, creating distance. Her arms are crossed, creating a barrier. Her jaw is tight, tension. Her breathing is shallow, stress. Her voice has gotten quieter, withdrawal. She's giving shorter answers than before, minimal engagement. Now you've got a cluster, multiple signals, all pointing in the same direction. She's uncomfortable with something in this conversation. One signal in isolation could mean anything. But 6 signals forming a coherent pattern? That's your brain telling you something important is happening. This is why learning to read people isn't about memorizing gestures. It's about developing pattern recognition. It's about seeing the forest, not just the trees. Principle number 5. Context is the frame around the picture. Imagine you see someone running. What does it mean? Well, are they running towards something or away from something? Are they on a jogging trail in athletic gear or on a dark street in formal clothes? Are they smiling or looking terrified? Are other people running too or just them? See how context changes everything? The same principle applies to every behavioral signal you observe. A behavior that means one thing in a corporate boardroom might mean something completely different at a family dinner, or in a crowded subway, or at a wedding reception. I learned this lesson the hard way during my first trip to India. I kept noticing people wobbling their heads in a side-to-side motion during conversations. Coming from a Western background, head shaking means no. So I kept thinking people were disagreeing with me or being negative, and I couldn't figure out why everyone seemed so contrary. Turns out that head wobble in Indian culture can mean agreement, acknowledgement, or understanding. Basically the opposite of what I thought it meant. Same physical gesture, completely different meaning based on cultural context. This is why you can't just download a body language cheat sheet and expect to become an expert people reader. Context isn't a footnote. It's essential to interpretation. Chapter 2. The Face, Your Emotional Billboard. You know what's absolutely wild? Your face is basically a high-definition emotional screen that broadcasts what you're feeling to anyone who knows how to look. And unlike your words, which you can carefully choose and edit, your face often tells the truth before you even realize what you're feeling. Let me tell you about something that happened to me at a friend's wedding last year. I was watching the bride's father during the ceremony, and for about 99% of the time, he had this proud, joyful smile. Exactly what you'd expect, right? But for maybe a quarter of a second, so quick I almost missed it, his face completely changed. His eyebrows pulled together, his mouth turned down, and this wave of sadness crossed his features. Then, just as fast, the smile was back. Nobody else seemed to notice, but I saw it. And later, during the reception, he mentioned to me how bittersweet the day was, happy for his daughter, but grieving that his late wife couldn't be there to see it. That micro-expression had leaked his true emotional complexity despite his efforts to stay positive. That's the power of learning to read faces. You get to see past the social masks we all wear and catch glimpses of what people are actually experiencing. The 7 universal truths written on every face. Here's something that blew my mind when I first learned it. No matter where you go in the world, whether you're in a bustling market in Morocco, a corporate office in Tokyo, or a small village in Peru, humans express 7 core emotions in exactly the same way. These aren't learned behaviors. Babies who are born blind make the same facial expressions as sighted babies, which means these patterns are hardwired into our DNA. Evolution spent millions of years perfecting this emotional communication system, and now we're going to learn how to read it. Anger, the storm warning. Anger has a very specific signature on the face, and once you know what to look for, you'll never miss it again. The eyebrows crash down and pull toward each other, creating these vertical lines between them. You know, that classic furrow look. The upper eyelids tense up and might lower slightly, giving this intense, focused appearance. The lips press together firmly, getting thinner, and in more intense anger, they might part to show teeth. Not in a smile, but in that aggressive, I'm ready for conflict way. Sometimes the nostrils flare just a bit, like a bull about to charge. Here's what's fascinating. Even when someone is trying desperately to appear calm and collected, these anger micro-expressions will flash across their face. Maybe they're in a professional setting and they can't afford to show anger, so they're working hard to control their expression. But that control isn't perfect. The anger leaks through in brief flashes that tell you what's really going on inside. I use this all the time in negotiations. When someone says, "That price is fine," no problem, but their face flashes anger for a split second. I know they're not actually happy with the price. They're accepting it, but they're not pleased. That information changes how I approach the rest of the conversation. Fear, the vulnerability signal. Fear creates one of the most recognizable patterns, and it's designed to make us look vulnerable, which, when you think about it, makes sense. Fear is our brain's way of saying, "I'm facing something I can't handle." The eyebrows shoot up and pull together at the same time, creating horizontal lines across the forehead. It's like your face is trying to make your eyes as big as possible to take in more information about the threat. The upper eyelids lift high, exposing more of the white of the eye. This is that classic wide-eyed look. The lower eyelids tense up too, and the mouth often opens, with the lips either stretched horizontally or slightly parted. I see this expression a lot in job interviews, and honestly, it breaks my heart a little. Someone will be answering a tough question trying to project confidence, but their face keeps flashing fear. Their eyebrows keep shooting up. Their eyes keep widening. They're terrified of saying the wrong thing. When I'm the interviewer, seeing those fear signals actually makes me want to help the person relax. I'll usually lighten the mood, maybe make a joke, circle back to easier topics. Because when someone's in fear mode, you're not getting to see their best self anyway. Disgust, the rejection's response. Disgust is probably the easiest expression to recognize once you know what you're looking for. And it's not just about bad smells or spoiled food. People show disgust micro-expressions whenever they encounter something they find morally repugnant or deeply disagreeable. The upper lip curls up, often just on one side, creating this asymmetrical look. The nose bridge wrinkles up and the cheeks raise. Sometimes the lower eyelid pushes up slightly. It's that classic, "I just smelled something rotten" face. But here's where it gets interesting. People flash disgust expressions when they disapprove of ideas, not just physical things. I was once in a meeting where someone proposed what I thought was a reasonable solution to a problem. But I noticed one team member flash a disgust expression so quick I almost missed it. Her nose wrinkled, her upper lip curled, and then it was gone. I made a mental note. She fundamentally disagrees with this approach. Sure enough, 2 days later, she came to me privately with serious concerns about the proposal. She hadn't felt comfortable voicing them in the meeting, but her face had already told me the truth. Happiness, real versus retail. Okay, this is where things get really fun, because happiness is the emotion people fake most often, and most people are terrible at it. Real happiness involves the whole face. The lips pull back and up, often showing teeth. But here's the key. Genuine happiness also activates the muscles around the eyes. These muscles, they're called the orbicularis oculi, if you want to get technical, but I just call them the joy muscles. Contract and create crow's feet wrinkles at the corners of your eyes. Your cheeks push up. Your whole face lights up. This is called a Duchenne smile, named after a French neurologist who first identified it. And here's the beautiful thing. You cannot fake this convincingly. Try it right now. Try to make your eyes crinkle the way they do when you're genuinely delighted. You can't do it on command, can you? Fake smiles only involve the mouth muscles. The person's mouth is smiling, but their eyes are dead. It's like someone put a smile sticker on their face, but forgot to tell their eyes about it. Once you learn to spot the difference, you'll see it everywhere. The flight attendant giving you that professional smile that doesn't reach her eyes. The colleague who says they're happy for your promotion, but their smile is all mouth, no eyes. Your date who's being polite but not actually into you, their smile is pleasant but hollow. On the flip side, when you see a real Duchenne smile, you know you're seeing genuine joy. And that's a beautiful thing to witness. Sadness, the heavy heart. Sadness has this quality that's hard to miss once you know what you're looking for. It makes the face look heavy, like gravity just got stronger. The inner corners of the eyebrows pull up and together, creating this inverted V shape or an upside-down arch. It's a very distinctive pattern. The lower eyelid might push up slightly, and the corners of the mouth pull down. In deeper sadness, the upper eyelids might look droopy or heavy, like the person is carrying a weight. Even when someone is trying to be strong and not show their sadness, these micro-expressions leak through. I see this a lot in healthcare settings. Someone gets difficult news, and they're trying to hold it together, trying not to break down. Their mouth might be steady. They might even be nodding along, but their eyebrows keep making that inverted V. Their eyes keep getting heavy, and you can see the sadness pressing down on them. When you can read sadness accurately, it gives you the opportunity to offer support in a genuine way. Not the thoughts and prayers kind of support, but real human acknowledgement. Hey, I can see this is hard for you. What do you need? Surprise, the reset button. Surprise is unique because it's usually the briefest of all expressions. It flashes and then immediately transitions to whatever emotion comes next. Fear, happiness, anger. Surprise is just that split-second wait. What? Before your brain processes what just happened. The eyebrows shoot up high and curve, creating horizontal forehead lines. The upper eyelids lift way up, exposing lots of white. The lower eyelids relax, and the jaw drops open with no tension in the lips. The whole face opens up. True surprise is almost impossible to fake because it happens so fast and involves such precise coordination. If someone claims they're surprised by news they actually knew about, their surprise face will look off. The timing will be wrong. It'll last too long or not be quite big enough. The coordination will be slightly off. I love watching people's faces when they receive unexpected gifts or news. That flash of genuine surprise is so pure and unfiltered, it's like catching someone before they have time to put their social mask on. Contempt, the danger signal. Contempt is the only asymmetrical universal expression, and honestly, it's probably the most important one to recognize because it signals danger in relationships. Contempt usually shows as one corner of the mouth tightening and slightly raising, like a mini sneer or smirk on one side. Sometimes it's subtle, just a slight asymmetry to the mouth. Sometimes it's more obvious, like a one-sided sneer. Here's why this matters. Contempt signals that someone feels superior to you or has fundamental disrespect for you. Research has shown that contempt is one of the strongest predictors of relationship breakdown, whether in romantic partnerships, friendships, or professional relationships. When you see contempt flash across someone's face during an interaction with you, pay attention. That's not just disagreement or temporary annoyance. That's deeper. That's, I think I'm better than you, or I don't respect you on a fundamental level. I've learned to watch for contempt expressions in business relationships. If a potential partner keeps flashing contempt when I'm presenting ideas, that tells me something important about how they view me and whether this is going to be a healthy, working relationship. Chapter 3. The Body Speaks. What the Mouth Won't Say. Your face might be your emotional billboard, but your body? Your body is like a whole language of its own, broadcasting attitudes, intentions, and psychological states in ways most people never consciously notice. Here's the thing about body language. Because it operates mostly below conscious awareness, it's often more honest than anything someone says. Your mouth can lie smoothly, but your body tends to tell the truth. The confidence code. Let me describe two people to you, and you tell me which one seems more confident. Person A walks into a room with shoulders back and relaxed. They stand tall but not rigid. When they talk, their gestures flow outward from their body in purposeful movements. They take up a comfortable amount of space. Their stance is balanced and stable, feet about shoulder-width apart. They make good eye contact, not staring, not looking away too quickly, just naturally engaging. When they shake your hand, it's firm but not aggressive, and they hold it for just the right amount of time. Person B enters the same room with shoulders slightly hunched forward. They make themselves smaller, taking up minimal space. Their gestures stay close to their body, tight and contained. They shift their weight frequently, rocking slightly. They fidget, maybe touching their face, playing with their hair, or adjusting their clothing. Their eye contact is off, either too little, with frequent looking away, or too much, with uncomfortable staring. Their handshake is either too weak or too crushing, and the duration feels wrong. You already know person A is confident and person B isn't, right? Your brain processed those behavioral clusters instantly. But here's what's really interesting. These aren't random behaviors. They're all part of coherent patterns that reveal someone's internal psychological state. Confident people take up space because they feel they have the right to exist fully in the world. Their gestures flow outward because they're not trying to protect themselves. They feel safe. Their stance is stable because they feel grounded. Their eye contact is natural because they're not anxious about how they're being perceived. Insecure people make themselves smaller because they're trying not to be noticed or judged. They keep their gestures contained as a form of self-protection. They shift and fidget because anxiety creates restless energy. Their eye contact is off because they're either afraid of judgment, looking away, or trying too hard to appear confident, staring. Once you understand these patterns, you can read confidence levels in seconds. Openness versus the fortress. Now let's talk about openness and defensiveness, because this is huge for understanding whether someone is receptive to what you're saying or building walls against it. Open body language looks like this: upright but relaxed posture, like they're comfortable in their own skin. Arms loose at the sides or gesturing naturally, nothing blocking their torso. When they talk, you can see their palms, which is a trust signal. They lean slightly forward when you're speaking, showing engagement. Their feet point toward you, which is huge. Feet tell the truth even when everything else is controlled. They don't put physical barriers between you, no crossing their arms around a laptop or clutching a bag in front of them. Defensive body language is the opposite. Arms crossed over the chest or stomach, creating a literal barrier, hands hidden, maybe in pockets, maybe clasped behind their back, maybe holding something in front of them like a shield. Body turned away while the head stays facing you. This is that classic "I want to leave, but I'm being polite" position. They step backward or maintain maximum distance during conversation. They place objects between you. Bags, drinks, laptops, whatever's available becomes a barrier. They might touch their throat, cover their mouth while speaking, or rub the back of their neck, all self-soothing gestures that signal discomfort. I use this constantly in teaching. When I'm presenting to a group, I'm always scanning the room. Who's open and engaged? Who's building fortresses? If I see lots of crossed arms and turned away bodies, I know I'm losing the room, and I need to change my approach. Maybe ask a question, tell a story, add some humor, anything to break through those defensive walls. The attraction algorithm. Okay, this is where it gets really fun, because attraction creates body language patterns that most people are completely unaware they're displaying. When someone is attracted to another person, and this works for romantic, platonic, or even professional admiration, their body does specific things. They orient their entire body toward that person. Not just their face, but their whole body turns. Their feet point in that direction even when they're talking to someone else. It's like their body is a compass and the other person is magnetic north. They reduce distance whenever possible. They find excuses to move closer. In a group conversation, they position themselves near the person. They lean in when the person speaks. Their posture improves. They stand taller, pull their shoulders back. It's like they're unconsciously trying to present their best physical self. They mirror the other person's movements and positions. If the person leans back, they lean back. If the person crosses their legs, they cross their legs. This mirroring happens completely unconsciously and creates a sense of connection and similarity. And here's where it gets adorable. They groom themselves. Women might smooth their hair, touch their neck or collarbone, adjust their clothing. Men might straighten their tie, adjust their posture, or run their hands through their hair. Both sexes suddenly become very aware of how they look. They also increase eye contact and smile more frequently. But these smiles are different from social smiles. They're more genuine, reaching the eyes, and they happen more spontaneously. I love watching people who don't realize they're attracted to someone yet. Their body language is basically screaming, "I like this person," while they're consciously thinking, "We're just friends." Your body knows before your conscious mind catches up. The deception detection dilemma. Okay, let's talk about lying, because this is what everyone always wants to know about. How can I tell if someone's lying to me? Here's the truth. There's no Pinocchio's nose. There's no single behavior that definitively means someone is lying. But deception does create cognitive load and often triggers stress responses, and those do create observable behavioral patterns. When people lie, they're doing complex mental work. They have to construct a false narrative, suppress the truth, monitor their own behavior, and watch your reactions to make sure you're believing them. That's a lot of mental effort, and it leaks through behavior. Some people increase self-soothing behaviors when lying. They touch their face, neck, or mouth more. They rub their hands together. They fidget with objects. They shift position frequently. These are anxiety reduction behaviors because lying makes many people nervous. Some people create more distance when lying. They lean back instead of forward. They turn their body away while keeping their head facing you. They might take a step backward during the conversation. Interestingly, many people become more rigid when lying. They're trying so hard to control their body language that they overdo it. They reduce their natural gesturing. They keep their hands unusually still. They maintain an artificially steady posture. Their movements seem rehearsed instead of natural. But here's the key. All of these behaviors could also mean the person is nervous, stressed, uncomfortable, or just not a naturally expressive communicator. This is why baseline is so important. If someone always fidgets and touches their face, that's just their normal. But if someone who's usually very still suddenly starts fidgeting like crazy when you ask a specific question, that deviation from baseline is meaningful. Chapter 4. The Voice, Your Emotional Soundtrack. Here's something most people don't think about. Your voice is basically a musical instrument that's constantly being played by your nervous system. And just like with faces and bodies, your voice leaks emotional truth even when your words are lying. Let me tell you about a phone call I had with a friend last month. She called to tell me about a new job opportunity she'd been offered. Her words were all positive. It's a great opportunity. Amazing company. Perfect timing. But something was off. Her voice was higher than normal, not dramatically, but noticeably if you were paying attention. She was speaking faster than her usual pace, with words slightly running together. There was this tight quality to her voice, like she was squeezing it through a narrower channel than usual, and she kept clearing her throat before important phrases. So I asked, "You sound a little stressed. Is everything okay with this opportunity?" And boom! That's when she admitted she was actually terrified. The job was perfect, but it meant relocating across the country and leaving everything familiar behind. She was excited, but also scared out of her mind, and her voice had been broadcasting that fear even while her words painted a purely positive picture. The Stress Symphony. When people experience stress, anxiety, or fear, their vocal cords literally tighten. This makes the voice go up in pitch, sometimes dramatically, sometimes just slightly. But if you're listening for it, you'll hear it. Speech rate usually increases too. It's like stress hormones hit the gas pedal on your words. People start talking faster, words run together, and articulation gets less precise. Breathing becomes shallower, which affects everything about the voice. There's less air supporting the sound, so the voice might become quieter or weaker. You might hear more frequent pauses for breath. The voice might develop this breathy quality, like they can't quite get enough air. Sometimes there's a slight tremor or shake in the voice. That's the vocal muscles responding to adrenaline and tension. When you hear these patterns, you know someone is stressed, even if they're saying, "Everything's fine." Their voice is telling a different story. The audio anger, creates a very different vocal signature, and once you learn to hear it, you'll never mistake it for stress or sadness. The voice typically deepens and becomes louder. This is about dominance and intimidation. The person is unconsciously trying to sound bigger and more threatening. Speech rate might increase dramatically with words tumbling out fast. But unlike stress-induced speed, angry speech has this aggressive quality. Consonants become sharper and more pronounced, especially sounds like P, B, T, and K. It's like the person is punching the words out. There's often a clipped quality to the speech. Sentences end abruptly instead of trailing off naturally. Words get bitten off at the end. I notice this a lot in customer service situations. A customer might be trying to stay professional, saying, "I'm not angry. I just need this resolved." But their voice is deeper than normal conversation. They're speaking louder, their consonants are sharp, and their sentences are clipped. Translation: they're absolutely angry. They're just trying to control it. The sadness soundtrack. Sadness and depression create the opposite vocal effects from stress and anger. Everything slows down and flattens out. The voice becomes lower and softer. There's less energy behind the words, like someone turned down the volume on their personality. Speech rate drops significantly. Longer pauses between thoughts. Words come out slower, more deliberately, sometimes with effort. The voice develops this monotonous quality, lacking the normal variation in pitch and tone that makes conversation dynamic and engaging. Sentences might trail off without proper endings, like the person doesn't have the energy to complete the thought. There's often this breathy quality to the voice, not from stress, but from low energy and sadness. When I hear these vocal patterns, even if someone is saying they're okay, I know to check in more deeply. "Hey, you sound really tired. What's going on?" The confidence frequency. Confident speakers have a very distinctive vocal signature, and interestingly, it's not about volume or speed. It's about control and intentionality. Confident voices tend to use a lower pitch range. This isn't about having a naturally deep voice. It's about speaking from a relaxed, grounded place rather than a tense, throat-restricted place. They speak more slowly than insecure speakers, not dragging out words slow, but measured, deliberate. They're not rushing to get their words out before being interrupted. They articulate clearly. Each word is distinct and understandable. They use appropriate volume for the situation, not too loud, not too soft. Their sentences are complete and well-structured. No trailing off, no turning statements into questions. They use purposeful pauses for emphasis rather than filling every silence with like, or, Their voice has this steady, unwavering quality. No trembling, no cracking, no pitch fluctuations that signal nervousness. Insecure speakers do the opposite on every point. Voice higher and possibly cracking. Speaking too fast, like they're afraid of being interrupted. Excessive filler words, and hedging language. Maybe, I think, sort of, kind of. Sentences turning into questions even when making statements, with that upward inflection seeking approval. The Deception Detection Symphony. Vocal patterns in deception are fascinating because lying requires cognitive effort, and that effort leaks through the voice. Some people speak more slowly when lying because they need to carefully construct their false narrative and make sure it's coherent. They're thinking hard about what to say next. Others speak more quickly, trying to get through the deception fast and move on to safer territory. The key is watching for changes from someone's baseline speaking pattern. Liars often use fewer contractions. They say, "I did not," instead of "I didn't," because the formal structure feels safer and more emphatic. It's like they're trying to make their lie sound more official and therefore more believable. They use more distance language. Instead of "my car," they might say "the car." Instead of using someone's name, they say "that person." This linguistic distancing happens unconsciously as they try to separate themselves from the deception. Their voice might lack the natural emotional variation that would be appropriate for what they're describing. They're working so hard on the content of the lie that they forget to modulate their emotional expression appropriately. Vocal hesitations become more frequent and appear in unusual places. Instead of pausing naturally at the end of thoughts, deceptive speakers often pause mid-sentence or right before key information. They might clear their throat more frequently, especially before delivering crucial parts of their story. Chapter 5. The Baseline Blueprint. Your Secret Decoder Ring. All right, let's talk about what might be the most powerful concept in all of behavioral reading, the baseline. This is your secret weapon, your decoder ring, your cheat code for understanding people accurately. Here's the thing. I could teach you that crossed arms mean defensiveness, and you'd be right maybe 40% of the time. But if I teach you to understand someone's personal baseline and spot deviations from it, your accuracy jumps to 80% or higher. That's the difference between guessing and knowing. What actually is a baseline? Think of baseline as someone's home base, their default way of being when they're comfortable, relaxed, and just being themselves. It's their normal speech pace, their typical gesture style, their usual eye contact patterns, their standard posture, their natural facial expressiveness. Some people are naturally animated. They talk with their hands, their faces are expressive, they make lots of eye contact, they speak quickly. That's their baseline, and it doesn't mean they're anxious or aggressive. It's just how they are. Other people are naturally reserved. They keep their hands still, their faces are more controlled, they make less eye contact, they speak more slowly. That's their baseline, and it doesn't mean they're sad or hiding something. It's just their normal. Neither is better or worse. They're just different. And here's the beautiful part. Once you know someone's baseline, deviations from it become incredibly meaningful. Building your baseline database. Let me tell you how I approach this with someone I've just met. Let's say I'm having coffee with a potential business partner named Sophia for the first time. For the first 15 to 20 minutes, I'm going to ask comfortable, low-stakes questions. Where did she grow up? What does she do for fun? Has she seen any good movies lately? How did she get into her field? I'm making pleasant conversation, but I'm also quietly observing and cataloging speech patterns. Sophia speaks at a moderate pace, uses lots of hand gestures when she's explaining something she's excited about, makes good eye contact, but breaks it naturally every few seconds, smiles frequently with genuine Duchenne smiles. Body language. She sits with an open posture, leans slightly forward when engaged, crosses and uncrosses her legs naturally, takes up a comfortable amount of space. Vocal qualities. Her voice has good energy, normal pitch range, clear articulation. She uses some filler words, like, but not excessively. Energy level. She seems naturally energetic and engaged. Not hyper, but definitely not low energy. That's Sophia's baseline. That's her normal when she's comfortable in talking about neutral topics. Now, 20 minutes into our conversation, I steer us toward the actual business discussion. So, tell me about what you're looking for in a partnership. And I watch what changes. Suddenly, Sophia's speech gets noticeably faster. Her hand gestures, which were flowing and natural, become more rigid and contained. She crosses her arms and keeps them crossed, which she hadn't done before. Her smile becomes less frequent and doesn't reach her eyes as much. Her vocal pitch goes up slightly. None of these behaviors would be alarming in isolation or in someone else, but they're all deviations from Sophia's established baseline. Multiple signals, all pointing in the same direction. Sophia is more uncomfortable or stressed discussing this business partnership than she was talking about movies. That's valuable information. It tells me to slow down, address concerns, create more safety in the conversation. Maybe she's worried about something specific. Maybe she's not as confident in the partnership as she claims. Maybe there's something she's not saying. See how powerful baseline is? Without it, I might have thought Sophia seemed reasonably comfortable with it. I can see she's shifted into a more guarded, stressed state. The 15-minute baseline rule. You don't need hours to establish a basic baseline. In my experience, 10 to 15 minutes of low-stakes conversation with someone gives you enough information to start spotting meaningful deviations. The key is keeping those initial minutes genuinely low stakes. Don't jump right into difficult topics. Don't start with controversial questions. Give the person time to settle into their natural state. Think of it like a scientist establishing a control group before running an experiment. You need to know what normal looks like before you can identify what abnormal looks like. Physical baseline checklist. When I'm establishing someone's physical baseline, here's what I'm quietly tracking. Posture preferences. Do they sit up straight or slouch? Lean forward or back? Cross their legs or keep feet flat? Tilt their head or keep it level? Gesture frequency and style. Are they a talker with hands or more still? Big gestures or small? Rhythmic or sporadic? Purposeful or fidgety? Facial animation. Highly expressive or more controlled? Frequent smiling or more serious? Eyebrows active or relatively still? Eye contact patterns, consistent or intermittent? Direct or more sideways glances? How long do they hold contact before looking away? Breathing rhythm, shallow or deep? Fast or slow? Through nose or mouth? Visible in chest or shoulders? Personal space preferences. How close do they stand or sit? Do they lean in or maintain distance? How do they react when you move closer or farther? Physical comfort indicators. Do they shift position frequently or stay still? Touch their face, hair, or clothing? Play with objects? Fidget or stay composed? Verbal baseline checklist. The vocal baseline is just as important. Speech pace and rhythm. Fast or slow talker? Steady rhythm or varied? Lots of pauses or continuous flow? Volume and projection. Naturally loud or soft? Clear projection or more mumbly? Voice that carries or stays contained? Vocal pitch and tone. Higher or lower natural range? Monotone or melodic? Warm or cool tone? Articulation and clarity? Crisp pronunciation or more casual? Accent or speech patterns? Clear enunciation or slurred? Filler word usage. How often do they use like? You know. Is it constant or occasional? Sentence structure. Complete sentences or fragments? Complex or simple structures? Grammatically precise or more casual? Response timing. Quick answers or thoughtful pauses? Interrupt or wait their turn? How comfortable are they with silence? Emotional expressiveness in voice? Animated and varied or more flat? Emphasis on certain words? Vocal energy high or low? The deviation detective. Once you've established baseline, you become a deviation detective. You're looking for clusters of changes that happen together and point in the same direction. Let me give you a real example. I have a colleague named Derek. Derek's baseline is pretty chill. He speaks slowly and deliberately, makes minimal hand gestures, maintains steady but not intense eye contact, sits in a relaxed open posture, has a naturally deep and calm voice. One day in a meeting, I noticed Derek is different. He's speaking noticeably faster than usual. His hands, which are normally still, are fidgeting with his pen. He keeps glancing at the door. His posture is more rigid than his usual relaxed state. His voice is slightly higher and has this tight quality. Derek's words are saying, "Yeah, I think this project timeline works fine." But Derek's behavior is screaming, "I'm stressed and I want out of this room." So after the meeting, I pull him aside. "Hey man, you seemed a little off in there. Everything okay?" Turns out Derek had just gotten a text that his kid was sick at school and needed to be picked up. He was trying to power through the meeting, but his body language was broadcasting his stress and desire to leave. Without baseline knowledge, I might have thought Derek was just being his normal, calm self. With baseline knowledge, I could see he was way outside his normal range. Environmental baseline shifts. Here's something important. Environments can temporarily shift everyone's baseline. You need to account for this. Cold rooms make people hunch shoulders and cross arms. That's environmental, not emotional. Loud spaces make people lean closer and speak louder. That's acoustic, not intimate. Formal settings make even relaxed people more rigid. That's social context, not anxiety. The key is noticing when someone's deviation goes beyond what the environment would explain. If everyone in the cold room has crossed arms but one person also has a tense jaw, shallow breathing, and is leaning away from you, that's more than just temperature. If everyone in the loud restaurant is leaning in but one person is also avoiding eye contact and giving clipped responses, that's more than just noise compensation. Time-based baseline variations. People also have natural time of day variations in their baseline. Some folks are morning people, energetic, talkative, animated early in the day. Others don't fully come alive until afternoon or evening. I learned this lesson with my partner. In the morning, her baseline is quiet, minimal eye contact, slow responses, needs coffee before extended conversation. I used to think something was wrong every morning. Are you mad at me? Did something happen? Nope. That's just her morning baseline. By 10 a.m., she's transformed into a different person. Talkative, engaged, making jokes. Same person, different time-based baseline. Understanding these natural rhythms prevents you from misinterpreting normal fluctuations as significant emotional changes. The sensitive topic shift. The most revealing baseline deviations happen when conversation moves from neutral territory to sensitive subjects. This is where you really see what people are thinking and feeling. Watch for simultaneous changes across multiple channels. Physical. Posture shifts, gesture changes, new tension patterns. Vocal. Pitch changes, pace shifts, volume alterations. Facial. New expressions, reduced or increased animation, micro-expressions. Behavioral. New self-soothing behaviors, distance creation, barrier building. When someone who was open and relaxed suddenly becomes guarded and tense around a specific topic, that topic matters to them emotionally. They might be hiding something, or they might just be uncomfortable, but either way, you've identified something significant. Chapter 6. Context. The frame that changes everything. You know what's one of the biggest mistakes amateur people readers make? They forget that context isn't just a footnote. It's the whole framework that determines what behaviors actually mean. Let me tell you about an embarrassing mistake I made early in my behavioral reading journey. I was at an international conference and I noticed this guy, let's call him Kenji, who kept avoiding eye contact with me during our conversation. My Western-trained brain immediately flagged this. He's being evasive. He's hiding something. He doesn't trust me. I was completely wrong. Kenji was from Japan, where prolonged direct eye contact, especially with someone you've just met, is considered aggressive and disrespectful. He was actually being super polite and respectful by looking away periodically. My interpretation would have been correct if he was from New York, but completely off base for someone from Tokyo. That day taught me, context isn't optional, it's essential. The environmental context layer. Physical environments create their own behavioral norms, and you have to adjust your interpretations accordingly. Temperature context. In a freezing office, everyone's going to have defensive-looking body language, crossed arms, hunched shoulders, minimal gesturing. That's thermoregulation, not emotion. But if one person in that cold room is also sweating, breathing rapidly, and can't make eye contact, now you've got something beyond temperature. Noise context. In loud environments, busy restaurants, crowded bars, construction zones, people naturally lean closer, speak louder, use bigger gestures, and position themselves near others' ears. This would signal intimacy in a quiet setting, but it's just acoustic adaptation in a noisy one. Crowding context. In packed elevators, subway cars, or waiting rooms, people reduce eye contact, create smaller personal space bubbles, and appear more closed off. This is normal crowd management, not antisocial behavior. Lighting context. Bright, well-lit spaces make people more alert and energetic. Dim lighting creates more subdued, intimate behaviors. Someone who seems low energy in a dimly lit lounge might be perfectly normal for that environment. The social hierarchy context. Here's something fascinating. The same person can display completely different behavioral patterns depending on the social hierarchy of the situation they're in. I know someone, let's call her Patricia, who's incredibly confident and dominant in her own company. She takes up space, speaks assertively, makes strong eye contact, interrupts when necessary, and clearly leads conversations. That's Patricia in her CEO role. But I've also seen Patricia at her parents' house during family gatherings. Different person entirely. She's more reserved, speaks less assertively, defers to others, takes up less space. Same human, different behavioral baseline because the social hierarchy is different. This is why you can't make permanent judgments about someone's true personality based on seeing them in just one context. The quiet person in their boss's office might be hilarious and outgoing with friends. The aggressive negotiator in the boardroom might be gentle and accommodating at home. The cultural context labyrinth. Oh man, cultural context. This is where things get really complex and really important. Personal space norms vary wildly. In many Latin American and Middle Eastern cultures, people stand much closer during conversation than in Nordic or North American cultures. Someone who feels invasive to you might just be operating in their cultural normal. Someone who feels distant might be being perfectly friendly by their standards. Eye contact rules are all over the map. Direct eye contact means honesty and respect in many Western cultures. In many Asian, African, and indigenous cultures, it can signal disrespect or aggression, especially toward elders or authority figures. Touch frequency changes dramatically. Some cultures use touch constantly during communication, hand on arm, pat on back, touching while talking. Others reserve touch for intimate relationships only. Neither is wrong. They're just different. Emotional expression styles vary enormously. Some cultures value open emotional expression and see emotional reserve as cold or dishonest. Others prize emotional control and see excessive expression as weak or inappropriate. Punctuality meanings shift across cultures. In some cultures, being exactly on time is crucial and shows respect. In others, flexible timing is normal, and being too punctual might seem rigid or uncomfortable. The relationship context, variable. The same behavior means different things depending on your relationship with the person. Crossed arms from your best friend of 20 years during a casual conversation? Probably just comfortable. Crossed arms from a new client during your pitch? Likely defensive or skeptical. Checking phone during dinner with your spouse? Might be rude. Checking phone during dinner with a casual acquaintance? More socially acceptable. Gentle teasing from a close friend? Probably affectionate. Same teasing from someone you just met? Might be inappropriate or boundary testing. Always calibrate your interpretation based on relationship depth, history, and established norms between you and the other person. The emotional context of situations. Some situations have their own emotional logic that affects how everyone behaves, and you need to account for this. At celebrations, weddings, promotions, victories, animated, loud, expressive behavior is normal and expected. The same behavior at a funeral would be inappropriate and concerning. During conflicts, arguments, negotiations, confrontations, defensive body language and tense vocal patterns are natural responses to the situation. Don't mistake stress responses for deception or permanent personality traits. In crisis situations, emergencies, serious problems, dangerous scenarios, everyone's stress levels elevate, creating behavioral changes that are situational rather than personal. At intimate moments, deep conversations, vulnerable sharing, emotional revelations, behaviors become softer and more contained. This isn't withdrawal, it's appropriate modulation for the context. The technology context revolution. Modern technology has created entirely new contexts that require different interpretation frameworks. Video call context. People often appear more formal on camera than in person. They manage their body language more carefully. Natural eye contact is impossible because looking at someone's eyes on screen means looking away from the camera. Gestures might be reduced because people are aware of how they look on screen. Text message context. Without vocal tone, facial expressions, or body language, text is the lowest context communication channel. People might seem blunt or emotional in text when they'd be perfectly pleasant in person. Delayed responses might mean busy, not angry. Short messages might mean efficient, not cold. Social media context. People curate their online presentation heavily. What looks like a perfect life might be strategic posting. Lots of posting might signal either happiness or desperate need for validation. No posting might mean private, busy, or depressed. You can't tell without more context. Email context. Professional email tends toward formality that might seem cold in person. Long response times might mean busy, not disinterested. Careful word choices might mean professional, not distant. Chapter 7. Digital Age Behavioral Reading, the New Frontier. Okay, let's talk about something most traditional behavioral reading guides completely ignore: how to read people in our increasingly digital world. Because here's the reality. We're not living in the 1950s where all human interaction happened face-to-face. We're texting, emailing, video calling, DMing, commenting, posting, and building entire relationships through screens. And guess what? People are still leaking behavioral information like crazy. You just need to know where to look. The text message psychology. Text messaging has created this whole new layer of behavioral patterns that reveal tons about people's psychological states and intentions. Response timing patterns are huge. Someone who consistently replies within minutes is signaling that you're a priority, they're anxious about the relationship, or they just have different digital boundaries. Someone who takes hours or days isn't necessarily playing games. They might be busy, prefer asynchronous communication, or have healthier phone boundaries than the rest of us. But watch for changes from their baseline. If someone who usually responds quickly suddenly goes silent for days, that shift is meaningful. If someone who usually takes their time suddenly responds instantly, they're probably excited or anxious about something. Message length reveals personality and emotional investment. People who send long, detailed messages often process thoughts through writing, want to be clearly understood, or are really invested in the conversation. Short, clipped messages might mean efficient, busy, uncomfortable with the topic, or emotionally distant. Again, baseline matters. If someone usually sends paragraphs and suddenly switches to one-word answers, something's changed. Punctuation and grammar in informal contexts reveal interesting things. People who maintain perfect grammar in text often value precision, care about how they're perceived, or are just naturally conscientious. Those who ignore grammar might be casual, focused on speed, or comfortable with informality. But watch for deviations. If your usually grammatically perfect friend starts sending messages full of errors, they might be stressed, drunk, or emotionally overwhelmed. The emoji emotional intelligence emoji usage is actually fascinating from a behavioral reading perspective. Frequent emoji users often value emotional expression, want to avoid misunderstandings because tone is hard in text, or just enjoy playful communication. Rare emoji users might be more formal, prefer verbal expression, or be from generations/cultures that don't use them much. But here's what's really interesting: changes in emoji usage. When someone who rarely uses emojis suddenly starts using them with you, they're probably feeling more comfortable and playful. When someone who usually uses lots of emojis stops, they might be upset, being more formal, or creating distance. The types of emojis matter too. Lots of laughing emojis might signal genuine amusement or nervous energy. Heart emojis can mean romantic interest, platonic affection, or just enthusiasm, depending on context and relationship. Social media behavior patterns. Social media creates this window into people's psychological states if you know what to look for. Posting frequency reveals extroversion levels and life satisfaction. Constant posting might mean seeking validation, sharing joy, feeling isolated, or just enjoying social connection. Rare posting might mean private, busy, consuming, rather than creating content, or depressed. Watch for dramatic changes. Someone who posts daily and suddenly goes silent for weeks? Something's happening in their life. Someone who never posts and suddenly starts sharing constantly? Major life change or emotional shift? Content themes reveal values and psychological states. Constant motivational quotes might mean they're struggling with confidence or genuinely want to inspire. Mostly negative news or complaints might signal pessimism, seeking attention, or processing difficult emotions. Primarily sharing others' content rather than creating original posts might mean reserved, preferring curation, or lacking confidence. The timing patterns tell stories too. Active late at night might be a night owl, insomniac, or in a different time zone. Only posting during business hours might be structured, using social media professionally, or accessing only from work. Email communication psychology. Email has its own behavioral language, especially in professional contexts. Subject line choices reveal organizational thinking and respect for others' time. Vague subjects, question, hey, thoughts, might mean poor planning, expecting others to read everything, or different organizational systems. Detailed, clear subjects often mean systematic thinking and respecting recipients' time. Email response patterns mirror many in-person communication styles. Immediate responses might mean anxious, highly responsive, or different boundary expectations. Longer response times often mean busy, processing carefully, or preferring thoughtful over quick. The formality level reveals personality and relationship perception. Someone who maintains formal business language even after years of working together might value professionalism or be naturally formal. Someone who shifts to casual language quickly might be relationship-oriented or naturally informal. Video call, behavioral reading. Video calls combine traditional behavioral reading with new digital dynamics, creating this weird hybrid context. Camera positioning choices reveal self-perception and technical savvy. Too close camera angle might mean technically inexperienced or unaware of how they appear. Well-framed, good lighting setups often mean experienced with video or caring about presentation. Background choices tell stories. Highly organized professional backgrounds might mean values, control, and presentation. Casual personal backgrounds suggest comfort with intimacy or less formal preference. Virtual backgrounds might mean privacy concerns, poor lighting, or desire to control image. On-camera behavior often becomes more formal than in person. People manage their expressions more, reduce natural gestures because they're aware of being watched, and sometimes create this slightly performed version of themselves. But you can still read facial expressions, upper body language, and vocal patterns. Just calibrate for the medium. People might be slightly more controlled than they'd be in person. Eye contact gets weird on video. Looking at someone's eyes on screen means looking away from the camera. People who look directly at the camera create good eye contact for viewers, but can't actually see the other person's eyes. It's this strange trade-off. Chapter 8. Practical Applications. Where the rubber meets the road. All right, let's get into the real-world scenarios, where these skills actually change outcomes. Because theory is great, but application is where the magic happens. Job interviews, both sides of the desk. When you're interviewing candidates, baseline establishment becomes crucial. Start with easy questions. Tell me about your background. What interested you in this field? And watch their comfortable state. Notice their normal speaking pace, gesture patterns, eye contact posture. That's your baseline. Then, when you ask tougher questions, tell me about a time you failed. Why did you leave your last position? Watch for deviations. Someone who becomes suddenly rigid, starts speaking faster, reduces eye contact, and develops a higher vocal pitch is experiencing stress around that topic. This doesn't automatically mean they're lying. It means that topic creates discomfort, which is useful information. Maybe they did fail and it still bothers them. Maybe they left their last job under difficult circumstances. The deviation tells you to probe deeper with empathy, not accusation. When you're the candidate, reading your interviewer helps you adjust your communication for maximum effectiveness. If they seem detail-oriented, asking specific questions, taking lots of notes, precise language, match that. Give detailed, specific answers. If they seem big picture, asking about vision and values, not taking many notes, broader questions, match that. Talk about your overall approach and philosophy. Notice their engagement levels through body language. Leaning forward, good eye contact, nodding. They're engaged. Keep going. Leaning back, checking phone, minimal response. You're losing them. Shift your approach. Ask a question. Add energy. Sales and negotiation. Reading the room. In sales, understanding genuine interest versus polite disinterest saves you time and energy. Genuine interest looks like leaning forward during demonstrations, asking specific questions about implementation or pricing, because they're imagining using it, using ownership language, when we implement this, not if we bought this. Open body language, pupils dilating when discussing features they like, genuine smiles when you explain benefits. Polite disinterest looks like maintaining formal distance, giving generic responses, checking phone or watch, using lots of qualifier language, maybe, we'll see, possibly, closed body language, fake smiles that don't reach eyes. When you see genuine interest, move forward confidently. When you see polite disinterest, either address the underlying concern or gracefully exit. Don't waste energy on someone who's not actually interested. Objections reveal themselves before they're spoken. Watch for pre-objection behaviors, increased fidgeting, facial expressions of concern or confusion, backward-leaning posture, hesitation before responding. When you see these warning signs, address concerns proactively. I'm sensing some hesitation. What concerns do you have about this? This prevents objections from hardening into deal breakers. Dating and relationships. Reading romantic interest. Early dating is basically a masterclass in behavioral reading because people are trying to manage their presentation while their body language is screaming their true interest levels. Genuine attraction creates these consistent patterns. Full body orientation toward you. Even their feet point at you. Reducing distance when possible. Finding excuses to move closer. Posture improvement. Standing taller, shoulders back. Mirroring your movements. Increased grooming behaviors. Smoothing hair, adjusting clothing. More eye contact with genuine smiles. Voices becoming slightly more animated. Polite but not interested looks different. Body orientation away, facing you but torso angled elsewhere, maintaining or increasing distance, no mirroring, minimal grooming behaviors, eye contact that feels dutiful rather than engaged, smiles that are pleasant but don't reach. The eyes. In established relationships, baseline knowledge becomes your superpower. You know your partner's normal energy levels, communication patterns, emotional expression styles. When they deviate from baseline, you can check in before small issues become big problems. Partner who's usually talkative becomes quiet? Something's on their mind. Partner who usually maintains close physical distance starts creating space. They might need alone time or be upset about something. Partner who normally makes lots of eye contact starts avoiding it. Time for a gentle check-in. Parenting, reading. Kids who can't always verbalize children, especially young ones, often can't articulate their emotional states clearly. Behavioral reading becomes essential. Stress in kids shows through behavioral changes, increased fidgeting or restlessness, changes in sleep or eating patterns, withdrawal from normal activities, regression to earlier behaviors, thumb-sucking, baby talk, clinginess, increased irritability or emotional outbursts. Academic or social problems often appear behaviorally before kids verbalize them. Reluctance to discuss school, changes in friendship patterns, suddenly spending more or less time with certain kids, decreased enthusiasm for previously enjoyed activities, increased clinginess or defiance might indicate bullying, academic struggles, or social conflicts. The key with kids is establishing baseline for different developmental stages. What's normal behavior for a 5-year-old looks like serious regression in a 10-year-old. What's dramatic mood swings in a teenager might be developmentally normal, while the same intensity in a younger child might signal something's wrong. Workplace dynamics, teams, meetings, and conflicts. In team meetings, scanning the room for engagement levels helps you adjust your approach in real time. Engaged team members, oriented toward speaker, taking notes, asking relevant questions, alert posture, forward-leaning slightly, good, eye contact, facial expressions matching content, disengaged participants, multitasking on devices, distant positioning, minimal responses, restless behaviors, avoiding eye contact, flat facial expressions. When you see lots of disengagement, you've lost the room. Change tactics, ask a question, tell a story, add humor, take a break, or directly address the elephant in the room. Workplace conflicts build through recognizable patterns before exploding. Early warning signs: decreased collaboration, formal communication replacing casual interaction, territorial body language around shared resources, avoidance of eye contact or normal social interaction, clustering into opposing groups. Catching these patterns early allows intervention before conflicts escalate. Hey, I've noticed some tension between you and Mark. Want to talk about what's going on? Medical and therapeutic contexts. Pain levels often show through behavioral indicators beyond patient self-reports. Physical pain creates increased muscle tension, protective posturing, changes in breathing patterns, shallower, faster, facial micro-expressions of discomfort, eyebrows pulled together, eyes squeezed, lip tension, reduced movement or guarding of painful areas. These behavioral indicators help healthcare providers assess whether treatment is working and pain management is adequate. Mental health indicators frequently appear behaviorally before reaching crisis levels. Social withdrawal, changes in grooming or self-care habits, altered sleep patterns reflected in appearance, dark circles, exhaustion, shifts in communication style, more withdrawn or agitated, changes in eye contact and facial animation. Friends and family who can read these signs can offer support or encourage professional help before situations become dire. Chapter 9. Common pitfalls and how to avoid them. Let's talk about the mistakes people make when learning behavioral reading, because knowing what not to do is just as important as knowing what to do. Mistake number 1, the single signal trap. This is the amateur's favorite error, spotting one gesture and jumping to conclusions. She touched her nose. She's lying. He crossed his arms. He hates me. She won't make eye contact. She's hiding something. Reality check. She might have an itchy nose. He might be cold. She might be from a culture where prolonged eye contact is rude. The antidote: always look for clusters. Multiple signals pointing in the same direction create reliable patterns. Single signals create confusion. Mistake number 2, ignoring your own emotional state. When you're anxious, you interpret neutral behaviors as rejection. When you're excited, you misread polite interest as genuine enthusiasm. When you're angry, everything seems like a threat. Your emotional state colors your interpretations more than most people realize. This is why the best behavioral readers develop strong self-awareness and check their own state before analyzing others. The antidote: before reading someone else, read yourself. What am I feeling right now? How might that be affecting what I'm seeing? Mistake number 3, cultural blindness. Applying your cultural norms to everyone creates devastating misinterpretations. Direct eye contact means honesty in New York, but aggression in Tokyo. Close personal space means friendliness in Sao Paulo, but invasion in Stockholm. Animated gesturing means engagement in Rome, but excessive emotionality in Helsinki. The antidote: always consider cultural background. When in doubt, ask or research cultural norms rather than assuming your standards are universal. Mistake number 4, confirmation bias. Once you form an opinion about someone, you notice behaviors that confirm it while ignoring contradictory evidence. If you decide someone is untrustworthy, you'll spot every shifty glance while missing all the honest signals. If you decide someone likes you, you'll see interest in polite behaviors while missing the discomfort signals. The antidote? Actively look for evidence that contradicts your initial impression. Force yourself to consider alternative interpretations. Mistake number 5, skipping baseline. Jumping to interpretations without establishing someone's normal creates errors. That nervous person might actually be unusually calm for them. That cold person might be warmer than their usual baseline. Without baseline, you're guessing. The antidote: invest time in baseline establishment. Those first 10 to 15 minutes of low-stakes conversation aren't wasted. They're essential foundation. Mistake number 6, context ignorance. The same behavior means different things in different situations, but people forget this constantly. Crossed arms in a freezing room don't mean the same thing as crossed arms in a heated argument. Avoiding eye contact during a formal presentation doesn't mean the same thing as avoiding eye contact during a one-on-one accusation. The antidote: always ask, what about this environment, situation, or relationship might explain this behavior independently of emotion? Mistake number 7, overconfidence. Even experts in behavioral reading achieve maybe 80% accuracy under ideal conditions. Real-world situations are messy, and you'll be wrong sometimes. Treating your interpretations as absolute truth creates problems. I know you're lying based on behavioral reading destroys trust even when you're right, and absolutely devastates relationships when you're wrong. The antidote: maintain humility. Frame observations as questions, not accusations. I'm sensing some discomfort. Want to talk about it? Works better than you're obviously uncomfortable with this. Mistake number 8, the manipulation temptation. Learning to read people creates this tempting path toward using the information to manipulate rather than understand. Using someone's insecurity against them, exploiting their attraction to you, leveraging their stress to win arguments. These applications exist, and they're ethically bankrupt. The antidote: regularly check your intentions. Are you using this information to improve communication and connection, or to gain unfair advantage? The first builds relationships. The second destroys them. Chapter 10, the path to mastery. All right, we've covered a ton of ground. Facial expressions, body language, vocal patterns, baselines, context, digital reading, practical applications, and common mistakes. Now let's talk about how you actually get good at this. Because here's the truth. Reading this guide makes you knowledgeable. Practicing these skills makes you competent. Sustained, deliberate practice over time makes you masterful. The practice roadmap. Start with focused, single-skill practice. Don't try to observe everything at once. Your brain will overload. Week 1 to 2. Focus exclusively on facial expressions. Watch people's faces during conversations. Notice micro-expressions. Practice identifying the 7 universal emotions. Keep a daily log. Today, I spotted 3 genuine versus fake smiles. 2 fear. Micro-expressions during presentations, one contempt flash during a disagreement. Week 3 to 4. Shift to body language. Ignore faces and voices, just watch bodies. Notice posture shifts, gesture patterns, spatial dynamics. Log confidence versus insecurity clusters. Openness versus defensiveness patterns. Attraction indicators. Week 5 to 6. Concentrate on vocal patterns. Listen to how people say things, not what they say. Notice stress signatures, confidence markers, deception patterns, emotional leaks in voice. Week 7 to 8. Practice baseline establishment. For everyone you interact with, consciously establish their baseline during low-stakes conversation, then watch for deviations during more sensitive topics. Week 9 to 10. Start integrating. Combine facial reading with vocal patterns. Notice when they match and when they contradict. Then add body language. Build toward processing all 3 channels simultaneously. Real-world practice environments. Coffee shops are perfect for observational practice. You can watch interactions without participating. Notice how people greet each other, the body language between couples, the facial expressions during difficult conversations at nearby tables. Public transportation gives you brief baseline establishment practice. You've got maybe 10 minutes with the same people. How quickly can you establish baseline and notice patterns? Video content with the sound off trains facial reading and body language without vocal distraction. Then watch the same content with sound on to check your interpretations. Phone conversations develop pure vocal reading skills. Without visual information, you're forced to rely entirely on voice to assess emotional states. Work meetings provide daily practice opportunities with people you're establishing long-term baselines for. Notice how colleagues deviate from their normal patterns during different types of discussions. Social gatherings let you observe baseline behavior in casual settings, then watch how it changes when conversations get more serious or personal. The feedback loop. The fastest way to improve is getting feedback on your assessments. When possible, verify your interpretations. After private behavioral observations, ask gentle check-in questions. You seemed a little stressed during that conversation. Everything okay? If they confirm your reading, you're building accuracy. If they're surprised, you're learning where your interpretations need calibration. With close friends or partners, you can be more direct. I'm working on reading people better. When I said you seemed upset earlier, was I right or was I projecting? This direct feedback accelerates learning. Keep a practice journal. Write down your observations and interpretations, then note whether they were confirmed or contradicted by later information. Patterns in your errors reveal blind spots you need to address. Integration and intuition. Here's what mastery actually feels like. You stop consciously analyzing and start intuitively knowing. Early in practice, you're thinking, okay, eyebrows down and together, jaw tight, lips pressed. That's anger. Plus rigid posture and clipped voice. Yep, definitely anger cluster. With mastery, you just sense this person is angry. The analysis happens unconsciously, and you're left with clear, accurate intuition. This takes time, usually months to years depending on practice intensity. But it happens. Your brain builds pattern recognition that operates below conscious awareness, giving you those gut feelings that are actually sophisticated behavioral analysis running in the background. The ethical evolution. As you get better at reading people, your ethical framework needs to evolve too. Early practitioners sometimes go through a phase of feeling superior or judgmental. I can see through everyone's masks. People are so transparent. Mature practitioners develop deep empathy. Everyone is struggling with something. Everyone is trying their best to navigate complex emotional landscapes. My ability to see their struggles is a privilege that comes with the responsibility to be compassionate, not superior. The goal isn't to become a master manipulator or human lie detector. The goal is to become someone who understands people deeply enough to connect authentically, communicate effectively, and contribute positively to every interaction. Your new reality, as these skills become second nature, your experience of human interaction fundamentally changes. You'll walk into rooms differently. Where others see a generic group of people, you'll see a complex web of relationships, emotions, and power dynamics playing out through hundreds of behavioral signals. You'll listen differently. You'll hear not just words, but the emotional soundtrack playing underneath. The stress in someone's voice, the confidence in their pace, the truth leaking through their vocal patterns. You'll notice things that used to be invisible. The micro expression that flashes for a fifth of a second. The posture shift that signals discomfort. The baseline deviation that reveals internal struggle. But here's what matters most. You'll connect differently. You'll sense when someone needs support before they ask. You'll know when to push and when to back off. You'll understand people well enough to meet them where they are rather than where you wish they were. This is the real gift of behavioral reading. Not the ability to catch liars or manipulate people, but the capacity to understand humans in all their complexity and respond with wisdom, empathy, and genuine connection. The journey continues. We've reached the end of this guide, but really, you're just beginning. Every person you meet from this point forward is a teacher. Every conversation is a practice session. Every interaction is an opportunity to deepen your skills and understanding. You now have the frameworks, the 7 universal emotions, the 3-channel communication system, the baseline principle, the importance of context, the cultural considerations, the digital adaptations, the practical applications, the common pitfalls. But frameworks are just maps. The territory is out there in real human interactions, waiting for you to explore it with new eyes, new ears, and new awareness. So here's my challenge to you. Take one skill from this guide and practice it deliberately for the next week. Just one. Maybe it's spotting micro-expressions. Maybe it's establishing baselines. Maybe it's reading vocal patterns. Focus on that one skill until it starts becoming natural. Then add another and another. Build your capabilities layer by layer, skill by skill. And remember, the goal isn't perfection. The goal is understanding. The goal is connection. The goal is becoming someone who sees people clearly, understands them deeply, and uses that understanding to make the world a little bit better, one interaction at a time. Because that's what this is really about. Not gaining power over people, but gaining the wisdom to love people better, to support them more effectively, to communicate more authentically, to build relationships that are grounded in genuine understanding rather than assumptions and projections. You have the tools now. You have the knowledge. What you do with it, that's up to you. I'm betting you're going to do something beautiful with it. Welcome to your new way of seeing the world. Welcome to the hidden language of human behavior. Welcome to a deeper, richer, more connected experience of being human among humans. The journey is just beginning, and I can't wait to see where it takes you.